Welcome back to the channel, all you beautiful people of Hexaco, the sweet, sweet land of Hexaco. Guys, there's a lot of chaos in the crypto world right now, and what better man to have on than Mr. Chaos himself, here to tell you it's all going to be okay. Guys, we're on the right side of history here. We're in the best asset class of all time, in the best asset within that asset class. So none of you watching that have been here a while are affected in any way, probably, hopefully, by Silvergate or SVB or SBF or any of these other dirty names that begin with an S. And I'm glad you're all safe because, a lot of people are getting wrecked out there and it's scary. So without further ado, welcome, Johnny. What's going on, man?
How's it going, man? Happy to be here. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, you always hit me up when there's a lot of chaos going on, and we need to talk. We need to stream, and indeed we do today because this is probably, I think last time we talked was around the FTX collapse, and so whenever buildings are burning around us, it's like we got to tell people what's going on. So for those that don't know, 3 banks back to back basically collapsed due to effectively a bank run caused by, at the end of the day, inconfidence in the system, spurred on by Jerome Powell raising rates very, very quickly, apparently too quickly for certain banks to be able to handle it, especially those banks with very, very low, if not zero, reserves in the actual bank themselves. It's kind of crazy to me that ever since COVID started, we've actually had 0% reserve requirements for some of these banks, which is just nonsensical. And we're seeing the repercussions of it in real time. The banks were not able to sell their bonds for very much money in order to pay the depositors out that wanted to cash out, because the bonds were wrecked because the interest rates rose, and that destroyed the price of the bonds that these banks held, thinking that was safe collateral for the depositors. They then turned to look to try to sell their stock in the companies. So the equity of all these banks and the whole banking sector is just fucked beyond belief. I mean, down 60% in a day. The whole sector, if you held banking stocks, you're going to eat a lot of losses. And I guess, the risk on investors in these banks should be eating those losses to a degree because they invested in companies that didn't work out. And that's the risk you take, right? So according to Jerome Powell, no losses will be incurred by the taxpayer. We'll see about that. There's kind of a sneaky bailout in the works. Long story short, they're allowing the banks to take out cash advance loans against the original value of their now worthless bonds. So they're taking out loans at a rate as if they had a lot more money than they actually do. It's basically just kicking the can down the road to say, you can take out this cash advance. The Fed will let you take out this cash advance so that these banks can pay all the depositors back, but they're going to have to pay that back with interest from money from new depositors, probably. So,
Boy, doesn't that kind of sound like a Ponzi? When old investors pay, or new investors pay old investors, isn't that what a Ponzi is?
Yeah, hey man, you said it, not me. So if the SEC is watching.
It's interesting. It's very interesting that the failed fractional reserve banking system is attempted to be replicated into the crypto system in the form of centralized exchanges that do the exact same thing that the traditional finance system is failing at.
Mm-hmm.
And then people wonder what the big deal is about crypto. It wasn't supposed to be institutionalized. What happened was, it's meet the old boss, same as the new boss. And, they're trying to replicate the already failing system and calling it DeFi and slapping a DeFi sticker on it, which it has nothing to do with decentralization. It's total centralized garbage with a DeFi sticker on it and saying, yeah, it's like getting a knockoff pair of shoes with a Nike sticker on it. I mean, it's bad.
But ironically, like, this is actually... There's been some rumors that the banks were told, Signature Bank, which was the third one to fail after SVB, was told that when people were going to buy out that bank, when new buyers were coming in to basically save it, there were rumors that upon agreeing to purchase this bank, you would have to agree not to do any crypto-related business, leading some to believe that, people in the control structure like Elizabeth Warren and just, the dinosaurs in Congress clinging on to whatever little control that they feel like they have left over this thing. It's kind of obvious that they want to try to crush crypto, but it totally backfired. And it's a beautiful thing because now that we have what's perceived to be a risk on environment, maybe, this isn't quantitative easing, right? But the market doesn't seem to care. The market seems to say, oh, Fed bailout. Okay, money printer go burr. All right, let's go back to buying crypto. And it's working out great for HEX. We're seeing Bitcoin pump a little bit too. It's staying above 25, 27K today. So you can't kill it. And every time you try to kill the honey badger that is crypto, it just gets stronger, So
because it's on chain. It's on chain and people know it to be real because it's ledger that is accessible. It's not back room. It's not, well, we kind of have this money. No, it's really there,
yeah.
and that's the thing. People are coming to the realization that the worst shit coin in all of history is fiat. They have an inflation bug. They can print as much as they want. They have admin keys. One guy gets to decide whether or not that inflation bug is active, right? They have no cap whatsoever, no cap, no limit, right?
I think it's funny how the more words and lingo we create in crypto, we're like, oh, these describe the banking system perfectly. It's just that, like, the language that they've constructed in the traditional system is off-putting to retail because it's beyond comprehension sometimes. Whereas, words like, oh yeah, so it's the Fed, they're basically whales, right? They've manipulated the market. They pulled a pump and dump Ponzi scam pyramid. Like,
handed out pre-allocations to all their friends. Don't forget the pre-allocations to all their friends.
The Fed is just
you got to work for it.
The Fed is like a pre-mine, yeah, like you said, with an admin key and an inflation bug built in. That's pretty funny. But so what was happening after this whole thing is that it blows my mind because legitimate companies, Caitlin Long is a significant figure in the crypto space. She attempted to open a new bank called Custodia Bank that pledged to, here's a crazy concept, fully back every dollar in the bank by a real asset, not even fractionally reserved, but more than fractionally reserved, meaning every dollar was backed by $1.08 of real assets, real cash or whatever, other like kind assets. That bank was shut down because, we don't know why it was shut down. They weren't given a reason, but we can assume that it was maybe because they had crypto tied to the bank, even though, that's how banks should be run in the first place. 0% capital requirements versus 108%. And this is the bank getting shut down, whereas Silicon Valley Bank, all of them. But Silicon Valley Bank had something like 93% of customer assets above the FDIC insurance limit. Because think about this, the FDIC insurance only goes up to $250K. That was made at a time where inflation was not as bad, right? So $250K in those days was kind of probably more like $500,000. Not to mention all these companies, all these Silicon Valley startups, they hold much more than that in these banks. So 93% of all their assets were not insured. And in order to continue to keep them above water, the Fed has to pull this new plan, which Richard's tweeted about. What's it called? The BTFD, the BTFP plan, something like that.
I don't know. I've been off Twitter.
Yeah, good for you.
I've been off Twitter. I'll tell you this, man. I've been getting notifications from my banks that says our policies have changed, and you guys better read your policies that are being changed from the banks, because basically the policies changed from the banks are saying, guess what? We don't have to give you your money back. That's pretty freaking scary, guys. When you start getting policies from your bank, your regular bank, saying our investments may or may not be backed, and we're not responsible, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
it's a risk, Well,
so especially the smaller banks too. The smaller banks keep getting bought up by the larger banks, and that's the problem. That every time you have, and we've never had less trust in the system than we do at this point in time today. But every time something like this happens, banks get absorbed by larger banks, and at the end of the day, you're only going to have like two choices. It's going to be JP Morgan or Bank of America, and it's like that's it. But what I think we really need to do, what my personal strategy is for managing my cash, and my cash relative to my crypto is small, right? I don't like to hold on to dirty fiat for too long, but I still want to go with these smaller banks because if they're not insured, that's okay. But it doesn't make me have any more confidence that these large banks are any more insured now than these smaller banks. So I have like 4 bank accounts, and I never want to hold more than a couple $1,000s on each one, maybe like 50K at the most, right? So it's good to have redundancy, and this is just my personal plan. You don't have to follow it, but you could tell me it's dumb, whatever. But I just like knowing that if one of my banks goes down, I've still got savings and backup 1, 2, and 3. And on top of that, the majority of my money is under my virtual mattress, in crypto.
Yeah, local bank, credit unions,
I
have
just opened a credit
diversity.
union and it's paying me 3% interest, which is higher than any traditional bank
Yeah.
for a savings account, which it's not going to beat inflation, but it's not offensively low either.
Yeah, you gotta have diversity in your banks. You can't just have all your eggs in one basket in the banking system, because what comes down to it is it's not safe. You were told that it was safe. And then it's those same people that believe that their banks are safe that go on to crypto and they're like, okay, now who do I give my money to?
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
learning self sovereignty,
Right.
which the importance of self sovereignty is really coming to the surface now. How important it is to know that your coins are where you put them, and you don't have to worry about somebody taking them. Mind you, hacks or
Wrench
giving
attack.
away your keys or doing something stupid, right? So you are safe. The narrative of crypto isn't safe is kind of going out the window at the moment, because you start to realize that this fractional reserve system, where, like Coffee said, they could have zero backing. The bank literally does what, guys? They loan you zeros on money that they don't have, and charge you interest on the money that they loan you that they don't have. Soak that in for a second, realizing that this is like the fiat is like the worst shit token ever, guys. In our terms, this would never pass. This would be a scam in crypto, and yet this is our traditional finance system. This is how it's designed. This is how they're replicating it, and this is why they don't see, like, well, there's no problem. We just hit the print button and it makes everything better.
It's even worse than some of the worst crypto charts I've ever seen in my life. It's even, if you look at the dollar, it only goes down, guys. It only goes down. They're not going to buy back, but they're not going to decrease the money supply to any significant degree. We're in debt way over our heads to other countries, and if we don't pay these countries back, there's geopolitical. We're talking about wars. So we're going to raise the debt ceiling because we don't want people to die, and that's basically where we're at. I've heard numbers like 50 trillion in debt, which is just, you tell a man in like 1920 that, and he would be like, his head would explode. So the numbers
it's all
just,
monopoly, Matt.
yeah.
It's all monopoly. That's the thing. All of this is monopoly. That's why Richard says our made up imaginary money is better than their made up imaginary money. And most people are not ready to accept that reality, because they don't want to think that they've worked their whole life chasing this dollar thing, that the only thing that gives it value is the fact that the government says it does.
The
You
full
don't
faith and confidence of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
LOL.
You don't get to choose. You were just told that it has value and that it has accepted value, and you accept that idea, and the fact that and because it's accepted, that's what gives it its value. Period.
Yep.
Something else, you can value something else. You can choose to value something else, and it doesn't matter whether everybody values it or not. It only matters if some people value it. Everybody in the world doesn't have to adopt it. Everybody in the world doesn't have to believe what you're doing. All that matters is whether or not you can trade one thing for something else that you need. And if you're able to do that, that thing has value. Period. That's all there's to it. No argument, no who's going to use it, no blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. If that thing can be traded for something else useful, and you can trade that for goods and services, then guess what? It has value. Like it, hate it, whatever. And by God, we have picked the best freaking thing we could possibly be in as far as generating value while the world is burning around us.
Yep, we're having fun over here. Generational wealth is being built where the global system's collapsing. But yeah, you try to tell some people about the value of crypto and they're just not going to understand it. But let me be very clear, if it doesn't have value to you, that doesn't mean it doesn't have value at all, period. Like, your worldview is not the worldview of the rest of humanity. And so you have to realize that. But we are on the cusp of virality, not only in HEX, but in crypto in general. We're at the point where if you're savvy, you can pay for things, goods and services, with crypto. If you live next to people that like crypto, there's places you can go travel to right now geographically where crypto is way more common. Hey, who knows? One day it might even be Hexaco, a special economic zone, perhaps maybe on the border of Texas or something like that. But as long as there's enough people willing to accept it, you can go to bitrefill.com. You can go to cakepay.com. There's all these different websites that today,
First.io.
yeah, they let you buy
First.io.
gift cards, and that can fund a lot of people's regular lifestyle, just with crypto alone. So you can live off of crypto right now today. It's just not very convenient to do. And if you want to buy a house or something like that, it doesn't really work right now. But when we get past the point of needing these banks, needing a middleman, a government middleman to facilitate our home buying purchase or our marriage contract, when we can do all this peer to peer on the blockchain, that's all going to go away. All that need is going to go away, and crypto floodgates will open, because you can go ahead and say, hey, look, if you want to take Ethereum for this house and I want to pay you in Bitcoin, I can send this Bitcoin through some smart contract router. Maybe it's technology that doesn't exist yet, but you'll get your Bitcoin decentralized and you'll get what you want and I'll get what I want. Maybe I'll get a deed to the house in NFT form. And it's just going to be a world, and I'm talking 20, maybe 30 years from now, but it's going to be a world where self-sovereignty has come back to the individual, and we really don't need these power structures anymore.
There are people now selling their houses for Bitcoin. There was somebody that offered their house for HEX, I saw.
I never saw that.
And I saw somebody else trying to sell their Lamborghini for HEX. Guess what? They bought the Lamborghini at the top and like, well, shit, back at these small prices, I want back in. I've been taking my Lamborghini around the block. There's only so many times you can do that, but generational wealth, well, you really don't want to miss out on that now, do you?
Yeah, no, it's no fun taking that Lambo through the potholes. You know, it's
yeah. We're Southwest Michigan, Southwest here. So yeah, that's not really good. Driving a Lambo around here.
Sounds better in theory than in practice, right? But hey, I think everybody should rent the Lambo once just to feel what it's like, and then you realize it kind of wears off in a couple of days, maybe even an hour.
Well, I saw that you got one from that Miami company that the Hexicans in Miami. That what's the company?
Yeah. Shout out to Exotic Rentals at the PulseChain conference. They just tossed me the keys. They're like, "Yo, Coffee, I love your videos. You want to drive the Lambo all weekend?" I'm like, sure. I don't have to pay for it. Those are great guys over there, and they're also going to be helping out.
Hey, I'm willing to take the Lambo for a cruise. Just so we're clear.
Yeah, Exotic Rentals, if you're watching, maybe bring an extra for Johnny next time.
Yeah, I'd like to play with one. I won't keep it, but I wouldn't mind playing with one for a day.
It's a bit scary though,
yeah,
you know.
Man.
It's like
So
you don't want to crash the thing either. So
no,
you don't want to take it at what its full potential could do.
No, I drive like a grandpa. I'm too damn safe.
Yeah, good.
But no, man, you made a great point. That's the thing about value. This is such an abstract concept for people to understand, because they spend their whole life working for these little paper squares that they think actually have value because they're told so, but they don't really understand where value comes from. They don't understand inflation. They don't understand these simple terms. We use money every day, but we don't really understand that it's the fact that that money could be exchanged for something else that we want, and that's what gives it value, right? And there are a billion items in the world, okay, that you will never buy, never have a need to buy, never have a desire to buy, or a thought, or maybe you don't even know they exist, but that doesn't mean that they don't have value. Not everybody's going to it's funny. I watch these people, they'll spend $40,000 on an NFT and they'll be like, it's valuable. Dude, you're like the only person on the face of the planet that would pay $40,000 for that. Good luck finding somebody to pay 50. Okay.
Dude, it's embarrassing sometimes. I was at a bar and some guy, one of my friends, was showing me, this was at the peak of the bull market, right? And she shows me this, I don't know what it's called, a pudgy penguin or a wacky walrus or some stupid shit. It's always some new fucking like little animal with like a, smoking a joint or something. And it's like, he shows me and he's like, hey, so isn't this pretty cool? Like, cause he knew I was a crypto guy. He thought I would think that that's cool. And I'm just like, I kind of cringed a little bit. I was like, dude, you should sell that. And his like, I could tell his feelings were a little bit hurt, but I'm just like, no, man, like I'm giving you real advice. Like you should probably sell that. Like, I don't know anyone that's gonna, because it was a Solana NFT out of all things too. And I think he paid like 10 grand for it. And he's like, but now it's worth, 13. I'm like, well, you lucky.
It's worth 13 if you can sell it.
Yeah.
But it's like an instant liquid market where you can just drop it. I mean, that's the thing,
NFTs are one of the lowest liquidity markets too. And a lot of times these so-called price floors are just set by scammers that buy the NFT from themselves.
Yes.
To make it the appearance that there is a demand, generate artificial scarcity. And then the rug gets pulled inevitably. I mean, there's a couple that will survive, maybe Bored Apes, they may, but that's about it. So I never got, that whole NFT bug really.
It's that perception of value. If they set a price floor, they set a price by buying their own thing and they say, okay, here's the demand. It's, it's kind of like the same thing in the art world, right? And the art world's a lot of money laundering.
Yeah.
In the fiat art world, it's a lot of money laundering where they're able to, bid on paintings and pay $1 million, and that $1 million goes somewhere it probably shouldn't, right? So I love it when they talk about, criminality and stuff and crypto when, money laundering and art has been going on for many, many long
Yep.
years. Because you see a painting with a dot in the middle and it sells for $1 million, you're like, come on now, people.
Yeah.
You have to say, look, something's going on here. Either that or that is somebody with ungodly amounts of money that simply wants to overpay for something so they can brag about having the ability to overpay for stuff. And I think that's a lot to do with Richard's outrage marketing was, he was trying to appeal to those people that like to brag about being able to overpay for stuff, just like as a status symbol sort of
Yep.
thing.
No, there's
And
a market for that. There's a market for, hey, I
there,
have the
yeah,
baller. When Richard makes his NFT diamond, that's just
mhm.
going to be a purely a flex. I feel like for some hexicans to say, hey, I own a chunk of the diamond. Like, look at my,
there,
my big
yeah,
peepee.
there's absolutely a market where people like to brag about overpaying for things. It's called Bitcoin.
That was a cheap shot. But at this point, you're kind of right. No, at the end of the day, it's a lot of people just, it's new thing bad, new thing don't understand, new thing is bad, and that's what people are clinging on to that narrative when it comes to crypto. It's like, well, who
Well,
controls
crypto
it?
was a new thing once, wasn't it?
What?
Crypto was a new thing once.
Crypto in general, yeah. And now it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
there
well,
you
Bitcoin's
go.
okay, but everything else is a scam. And it's like, okay, well, Ethereum's okay, but no, everything else is still a shitcoin. And then, the tides turn.
Yeah, and you know what? You have different evolutions, right? It takes a long time to get a product like Bitcoin or to get a product like Ethereum, and you're going to have a lot of failures on the way until you find that next iteration. And what is the next iteration? Well, the next iteration is trustless yield without having to buy specialized equipment that are owned by two company or run those equipment in competition against two companies that own all the hash rate. Instead, you can participate from ground level, and this is where the next innovation of crypto is. DeFi, not putting it on exchanges, not trusting them to give you yield, being able to participate in the ecosystem and print your own coins that just happen to have a market value.
Yep.
That's where we're at right now.
And I've agreed. I've always looked at Hex as the next evolution in the Bitcoin crypto saga. It can do things that Bitcoin can't do, but in reality, it's going for the same use case that Bitcoin
Yeah.
tried to do and is currently doing. So Bitcoin proved that yes, crypto can be a store of value. And Hex said, okay, well, if we can be a store of value, then let's just do something that Bitcoin can't do. Let's generate trustless yield with no middlemen because everyone's giving their Bitcoin away to BlockFi to make 7-8% pitiful interest rate, and then BlockFi goes bankrupt, and that's not what crypto is supposed to be in the first place. So
Nope.
the use case of all this stuff is really just censorship resistance and self-sovereignty, and then whatever other fancy narratives a lot of people want to put on is usually secondary or not as important. So starting with the store of value, I think addresses a larger market than any of these other more niche utility tokens, let's say, which sure, they might have a utility, but that doesn't mean their price is going to pump. I think when you have something as big as Hex that really is the next premier store of value that's modular, isolated, lives on a smart
Productive.
contract, audited.
Productive store value. I like that.
Yeah,
Productive store
yeah, it's
value.
an asset that pays you. It's audited. Bitcoin's not audited. It's modular. It's Bitcoin is spaghetti code. It addresses the CD market in addition to the gold market, right? Which is, trillions and trillions of dollars more of an addressable market than Bitcoin when it comes to product market fit. And on top of that as well, Hex, it's still the test of time. I think it's just to the test of time where it hasn't been hacked. It's got 100% uptime, and you just can't argue with it anymore. It's like if Bitcoin was a scam to you 3 years ago, well, how long is it going to take before it's not a scam to you anymore? Like how long does it need to survive? And if you're going to wait 6, 7, 8 more years, all the opportunity for mad gains might be gone by then. So,
It
I mean,
has value
things,
whether you want to accept that it has value or not. It has value.
yeah. But
It,
here's the interesting thing
people
I
are
think
just beating
about
themselves up.
the progression of the life cycle of something. People like to say, well, crypto is money, and then people argue back, no, it's not money because it can't be the 3 definitions of money. What are the 3 definitions of money? Store of value, unit of account, medium of exchange. But you don't start off being all three. You can't be everything to everyone. You need to progress through. You need to start as a store of value. You move into medium of exchange, and then your final, where you end up at, is unit of account. And then you encompass all three. But so when Bitcoin started off, sure, it stored value pretty well. It went from 1 penny to $100, but nobody was accepting it for payment. Now you've got a lot more people accepting Bitcoin for payment, but there's not a whole lot of things denominated in Bitcoin. That's the unit of account part. So when exchanges, when the global macro environment starts to price things in Bitcoin terms, that's when you realize that crypto has kind of dominated the industry. Like the dollar
Then
is
it's
no
time
longer.
to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Time to sell.
Yep. And the same thing I believe will happen with HEX. I think we're right now just in the price discovery, store of value phase. And I'm looking forward to moving into medium of exchange or unit of exchange kind of, and then eventually unit of account.
I still don't think we're on the map.
Yeah.
I think we're still breaking down those gates. And I think finally, we have influencers like Ivan on Tech coming out and pointing out that, we're not properly listed on the listing sites. And, a lot of the lies are being exposed now. There's you got to be listed on an exchange. No, you don't. Exchanges are middlemen. It's not what crypto was invented for. You got to be listed on CoinMarketCap. No, you don't. That's their private list of their opinions of things that they want to promote, with 3 guys with admin keys telling you what to believe so you can shop off their shopping list, right?
That just so happened to own Binance, by the way.
That just so happen to be the same people that own Binance, right?
Yeah.
And that have vested interest in Cointelegram. And this whole pay per play system and crypto, where they fundamentally have tried to take it over in the same way that politics try to take over the news media and outlets and reporting and everything. It's literally the replication of it. So if you want to find the new thing that is cutting edge, you're not going to find it in the mainstream, and that's why they can't find us yet. So I think we're way still early. And when PulseChain launches, finally, I'm getting a little sick of it myself. Finally, when PulseChain launches, it's going to bring that level of exposure that people are going to have a higher level of awareness that we're even alive. I still think we're fringe. I still think everyone's like, these are the crazy guys. It reminds me so much of Bitcoin back in the day, where it was nerds in their basement running a bunch of computer equipment and everybody going, why are you draining all the power in the town? It's like, that's kind of where we're at now.
I really do agree. It does feel that way. It does feel like the gates are crumbling, but PulseChain is what's going to put us on the map. I mean, we've had the 13th largest exchange, MEXC, centralized exchange, list HEX, which is, I believe, a net positive simply for the hype alone. But guys, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. And there's a lot of bad things that come along with centralized exchanges too. Number one, they often take bribes in order to get listed. It's called listing fees, but it's a fancy word for a bribe, where you have to pay them the token so that they can facilitate the initial liquidity. That doesn't happen with HEX.
Do that.
We didn't do that, which is cool, which is why I'm asking people, has anybody seen MEXC buying HEX? Because, I mean, they can either buy HEX and actually hold the reserves on behalf of their clients, or they can just print fake funny money paper HEX and then hope that nobody tries to withdraw. I think the cool thing about HEX is that when people decide to stake it, they need to withdraw it out of exchanges. So we'll see who's caught with their pants down if there is ever somewhat of a bank run on these centralized exchanges. But on top of that, let's say an exchange gets hacked. We see it all the time. Does FTX ring a bell? And let's say an exchange gets hacked that happened to be holding millions of HEX. Well, the hacker is going to probably just market dump that HEX. So it also ends up being bad for the price as well. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Well, it seems great in the near term. It's like, yeah, hype, gates are opening. I'm not recommending people use them or just realize all the things that can go wrong. But yeah, Ivan on Tech, Ivan on HEX. Yeah, he's doing great. We even had Meet Kevin. That was hilarious to me. He's I don't want to say he's one of us, but he's definitely not on my shit list as much as other guys are.
He's catching on. I think he's catching on.
Yeah. I think we'll see him make some statements as well, because he got chewed up and spit out by the Hexicans, man, because he tried to call Hex a scam as he was getting called out for shilling FTX, and it's like, bro, like how,
we could have saved him a lot of money. A lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, let's not forget the Highest Stakes documentary. I don't know if you've heard anything about that lately.
I have heard nothing on that yet lately, and I've had people calling me, "When's this thing going to be out? We want to see it."
That's just a little icing on the cake. That's just like a nice surprise. Whenever they want to release it, I know it's coming out probably this year at some point. So, whether the Hulu, Netflix, I don't care, but it'll just be like oh,
Just
cool.
out. Out's good. We're good with out.
Yeah, yeah. There's something good to watch for once. That's nice. All right. At this point in the year, the Hex ecosystem going to explode. Yep, that's what we're saying, dude. That's what we're saying. $50 Hex. Yeah, sure. I like that. I like the sound of that. But yeah,
Matt, the craziest thing is I imagine if we were Bitcoiners setting at 8 cents right now, we would be going, it's never going to hit $50.
it's funny when you put it that way.
Funny, right?
Yeah.
If that were the situation, we would be having the same conversation that we are now today, because it just doesn't seem fathomable to hit these high level prices. And then you have to ask yourself the question, why can't it?
Look,
why can't something that is designed better with trustless yield, okay, with the network that we have today of 150 some odd influencers or personalities talking about it on a daily basis, with social media, with thousands of followers spreading the word, TikToks in everybody's home, on everybody's phone, in front of their faces, how is it possible that we don't perform better than Bitcoin?
Look, I call for, in my head, I've always envisioned Hex could hit as high as $100, maybe even higher, but I get cautious saying that in polite society because it just sounds too good to be true when you realize that's exactly what Bitcoin did. That's actually not even as good as what Bitcoin did. I think it could do that in 5-6 years, which in the grand scheme of life, to go from 8 pennies to $100 would be pretty fucking good. And it'd be the relative blink of an eye. And hey, maybe let's try to have some fun along the way with it. But
and it might not be done, because what did Bitcoin? Bitcoin went up to 8 cents to $100. Bitcoin went as high as $70,000. Do you think if you told Bitcoiners that this was going to be $1 trillion market cap, how would they have reacted?
I mean, a lot of Bitcoiners
were crazy,
That's why a lot of the OG Bitcoiners aren't still in it anymore, because they sold themselves out. They were happy with a 1,000x, or they were happy with a 10,000x. They had no idea a million X was on the table, or 6.9 million X technically. And a lot of those guys that bought at 1 penny, think of all the opportunities they had to sell along the way, because they weren't locked up. They didn't have a lot of community at their back. They had community infighting, and you still see that today. A lot of people defect from Bitcoin because it's such an exclusive community. If you don't believe the doctrine that they're peddling, then shame on you. You're banished from the Bitcoin religion.
You can't sit at their table full of 3 guys that feel that they're better than everybody else so that they can laugh at their own jokes.
Yeah.
Shame, banished. You're going to have to hang out with us Mexicans, where we like throw big parties and everybody's included and everybody's having a good time. I mean, suffer with it.
I've been to Bitcoin parties too, guys. I've been to, the Unconfiscatable conference, and man, it is a little embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's about 100 dudes sitting around in a room giving out the scammy awards, they call them. And they basically just call out a list of people. To me, it's like the list of the biggest influencers of the world. I mean, last year they put Elon Musk and Richard Hart on the Scammy Awards, and some.
And Vitalik was the other one
and
too.
Vitalik, and I'm like, these are the most influential people of all time. So.
Yeah. And you want to vote? You want to vote against them? You definitely want to hedge your bet against them, man.
And they're all laughing. They're like all smug, like,
we like our jokes. We're so funny.
Like nothing about that was funny to me.
Funny, you can't sit with us. Go buy your own steak.
Like, have you guys even been to an ETH conference? I mean, even though even though Vitalik likes to dress up like a unicorn, I mean, it's still more entertaining than a bunch of guys at a poker table just talking about how everything else sucks. It's just like,
I love it.
They play poker. They play poker at these things because, I mean, a lot of people in Bitcoin, they still think that gambling or trading is just the thing to do, because it kind of is. You can't do much else with Bitcoin. You can trade it and it's not going to pump 100x anymore. So, you can maybe trade it for 20-30% swing trades, but you're glued to the screen all day, and all you have to comfort you is Tone Vays' voice in the background. Buy Bitcoin.
And I remember, it's funny. You go back, right? Go back and pull up Bitcoin Conference 2011, and you've got Andreas Antonopoulos talking to an empty room, and Bitcoin was at $100. Nobody cared, guys. What happens is these price points hit unreasonable, stupid amounts, and then everybody pays attention, and then they all FOMO in because now all of a sudden, since it becomes the knowns, new price levels become knowns. Then it's acceptable. It's like, oh my gosh, it is worth something, and everybody snaps. There's like a point where they snap and they go, but it could go higher. And when it's low, everyone's like, oh, I got a whole thing of diamonds here. I could just hand these out. I got plenty of them here. It doesn't matter to me. And then the price goes up and you realize what things are actually worth and not what you paid. And then something snaps, right? And then that's when everyone backs their truck up and they're just all wanting to get in. So we're just so early. It's weird to look at it this way, and because you hear the Bitcoin community, it's $23,000, and they're like, "We're so early, dude. That's a car. We were less than a Doge. You could buy 2 HEX for a Doge not that long ago. Now we're beyond finally the Doge. But I mean, look, and they've got all these narratives like, oh, inflationary bad. Oh yeah, hey, look at Doge, 10,000 coins per minute. Inflationary bad. It almost made it to $1. Mm-hmm. Oh, but it's just a stupid shit meme coin. And people did not care, did they? It still almost hit $1. And then we know what HEX is, and it's like, are you freaking kidding me? You're going to tell me HEX can't do $1 when Doge can? What rocket science is that to figure out that meme coin, designed as joke, hyperinflationary, 10,000 coins per minute, no cap, no limit, no narrative really, other than rich guy going to pump my bag. I mean, that almost made it to $1 because of visibility, accessibility, the fact that there was like a mass listing of Doge, so it was on all the exchanges. There was an easy button, right?
And memes, plus memes.
You want to be in the coin before there's an easy button. You want to be in the coin before it's on Robinhood. You want to be in the coin before it's on Webull and eToro and all these extra platforms. That's when you want to be in a coin. And you want to be in a coin that's lasted 3 years, going into its 4th year, and has nothing but beautiful price performance. Did we dip? Yes, just like all other cryptos. And did we dip before? Yes. 13 times. Was this the longest, hardest dip we've ever had to have? Yes. But you know what? We're going back up again. And we're going to break all-time high. And come on, second cycle, if we cannot at least hit $1, that's just sad.
Yep.
That would just be so sad.
Yeah. And, Bitcoin's price ran up when its inflation was the highest. You mentioned a point about inflation that we can cover. Inflation is not simply bad or good. There's a lot of false binary thinking here. Who
gets it?
Yeah, it's who gets it. And it's also runaway inflation by a group of unelected guys that can print as much money as they want. That inflation is bad. 3.69% programmed into the code that can never be changed. That's kind of okay because you do need to accommodate for more demand coming into the system. And so as long as demand can meet the supply that's coming out, effectively, it's not even 3.69, right? Effectively, it's 1.8 when you actually see how many people, sold HEX or unstaked HEX over the course of the last year. But yeah, we do need inflation. It's not simply good or bad. Deflation has become a fun narrative just because inflation is like the boogeyman today in the macro environment.
But Bitcoin's inflationary for the next 120 years, Matt.
And that too. Yeah, it's still inflationary.
The last coin is not printed. The last coin is not printed until 120 years from now, and everybody's going to be dead before that cap is ever reached. And then you got to figure out, well, if the miners are no longer getting paid to run the network, how much are those transactions going to be to incentivize them to keep their computers on?
Yeah, there's a lot of fear that the fee structure by the time 2140, I think that's the final year of the last halvening, around there sometime in about 100 years or so. There's this narrative that, oh well, the fees are gonna keep all the miners profitable, and I don't think so, especially not if people have moved on to better tech by then. And so you've got Richard proposing things like, well, the miners are probably just going to collude to change and to introduce more Bitcoin into the system again, because they don't want to sell their mining hardware. They want to keep the game going for themselves. We see this with every time a coin goes from proof of stake to proof of work to proof of stake. It happened with Ethereum proof of stake, and they branched off of Ethereum proof of work. Ethereum proof of work just simply didn't want to sell all their hardware. They got warehouses of this shit, and they want their money, so they're going to make their own chain. Doesn't matter what's on it, because people are going to trade anything with a ticker symbol. And that same thing happened with Ethereum Classic, right? People just wanted to keep the game going. That wasn't quite the same, but when people have a lot of money invested in something, it's social consensus at the end of the day. These things are socially enforced networks. Yes, the code is law at the smart contract level to a degree if you have a trustless, immutable smart contract, but these network levels, they get upgraded all the time. And so the small group of 5 or 6 developers that actually run Ethereum, the base layer chain, it's like 5 or 6 dudes committing to that repo. They can get together and decide whatever they want, just like they decided to raise the gas costs in the S-load function, which priced out a lot of users trying to unstake their HEX. Because of the S-load function, because of decisions made by a small group of developers, and it didn't only affect HEX, it affected, Kyber Network and a couple of other big tokens. These tokens became incredibly gas inefficient.
Even too.
Uniswap too. Yeah, we see Uniswap swaps regularly at $50. This is what PulseChain was here for. It was meant to save us from some of the poor decisions made by the Ethereum developers to have a walled garden so that they can't do anything nefarious at the protocol level.
But I think that really was organized, because what that did was an attack on decentralization type functionality. It was more to push people back to the exchanges, because exchanges can do things off chain and give you a unit of account for that without actually running the transaction. So they could charge you next to zero fees. So using a DEX, you would have to explain to people, why am I paying $50? Right? And if you didn't have to pay $50, it would just be easier for everybody to just stay on exchanges. Now, guess what we just found out? When you leave your money on exchanges, what happens? The exchanges take your money. Now you understand what you're paying that for. But the thing is, I do believe that increase in the S load was really to kibosh this whole DeFi efforts. Because what did it affect? It affected Uniswap. It affected self-sovereign type staking, smart contracts. It affected all of these things, forcing people back to centralized exchanges in order to stake their coins on them in order to receive some kind of yield. It made it so difficult to yield farm, because you could not exit and enter positions without paying ridiculous fees. And what that would do was that would eat up the money that you put in there into the smart contract to gain fees from. So it made it unusable. And that's why we're putting together PulseChain to begin with, was to allow DeFi to be utilized in the way that it was intended to be utilized to begin with, without these exorbitant fees. And I think when we do launch, we're going to see a whole new rush of people doing liquidity providing and on-chain trading, and they're going to learn a whole new world. And the best part of it is you're all participating. Whether you want to or not, you will have some kind of value. If you have ERC20 tokens in your wallet, you will have some value to claim over on Pulse X when it exists, and you will have the ability to try out that network. And if you like it, you might not want to go back over there to Ethereum. You'll still have value over there, but you might find something easier to use. There's more user friendly with smaller fees that allow you to actually compete in the ecosystem as you are intended to with the original design of the DeFi functionality.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to come over to PulseChain and realize right away it's going to seem obvious. But going back to that S-load thing, Dipcatcher has a clarification here. Their explanation, the developers, and I've read these notes before too, and their explanation, it kind of makes sense, right? They claim they were increasing the S-load cost because It was something they'd been meaning to do for a long time because essentially it prevented spam, right? Because S-load is the cost to write to the disk. And if you have, you could potentially have these malicious smart contracts that just write to disk over and over again and spam up the blockchain. And yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually not even sure how, what gas.
Not saying the name. Don't say the name. Don't say
I don't even know how much gas all those transactions take up at an individual level. But yeah, so but what the Ethereum developers
Over
I think are doing,
$32 million was spent.
Look, hey, I mean, if anything, it pumped the price of Ethereum, right? But anyway, this type of attack that Dipcatcher's talking about, I don't think was even happening currently at the time. It was kind of a future imaginary. Well, people could do this, so let's raise the S-load function preemptively so that this doesn't happen. Which is really just a design trade-off. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just Richard had a fundamental disagreement where why would we try to do this if it's not happening now? Why wouldn't we just
even
go back?
minting NFTs? Even minting NFTs got absolutely absorbent. And I mean, you can't even mint a freaking JPEG without paying some kind of ridiculous gas fee. And Coffee, what was really interesting about that is it goes back to that people bragging about overpaying for shit.
Yeah.
That was kind of the narrative at the time too, was, well, if you can't afford to mint a Bored Ape, then you shouldn't be minting a Bored Ape.
Yeah.
And the problem with that attitude is that is such an exclusive attitude. You want to be part of the elite. You want to be better than everybody else because you've got more money to spend. So you can justify overpaying for stuff that you don't need to actually do. And I don't understand that mentality because that doesn't create adoption. Inclusivity, right. Allowing people making things affordable that everybody can use. That is where we come in. We're trying to express that this is inclusivity. This is something anybody can do. You can mint your own coins. You can afford to do this. You can be part of Team Win. You don't have to justify overpaying for stuff that you don't need and at exorbitant prices just to be cool.
Well, some people do claim that, even the NFT community, for example, they're just good to pick on because they claim that I believe the NFT community would still believe that Ethereum is kind of the blue chip NFTs and all these other NFTs are kind of secondary because of the cost of mint and all these prices that don't really need to be paid. But even Vitalik himself, when we're going back and talking about design decisions, right? Even Vitalik himself recommended, hey, if the chain is full, people should fork the chain. And that's why a lot of things like Arbitrum and Polygon and even Binance Smart Chain are getting kind of popular because they're simply alternatives. And yes, one day we might have all this stuff on layer 2, but one day we might have everything, connected at the layer 0 level. I mean, there's people working on these protocols right now, bridging protocols, and there will be one-click automated workflows where you don't even have to know what blockchain your payments were routed through. You'll just get, all this stuff is coming. But in the meantime, to buy us more time, PulseChain is going to be around for probably the next 5 or 6 years with cheap, dirt cheap and pretty fast fees. 10 seconds is more than fast enough to buy us some time to develop the infrastructure for the kind of global. It's almost like, Einstein's unified theory of everything, right? It's one day we're going to move to the unified crypto of everything. All the chains are going to be connected. All the bridges are going to be trustless, but all these innovations haven't really happened yet. Or if they haven't come to fruition in a way where the user experience is viable. So if anything, PulseChain, the decision to make PulseChain, it was to buy us more time to allow HEX to thrive and exist until, maybe other solutions come out. Maybe it is layer 2. Maybe it is cross-chain interoperability, layer 0. I don't know what it's going to look like, but this is what works right now. And even Vitalik has recommended this as a solution for the next decade or so.
And it's really funny when you go back and you see Vitalik say, well, the internet of money should not cost 5 cents. Well, shit, dude, what about $500 to end a stake? Jesus. Yeah.
The problem is that
we lose that. I'll pay the 5 cents all day long, man. Give it to me. Give it back. Bring it back.
all these chains are a victim of their own success at some point. And right. I'm looking forward to the time that PulseChain also experiences those problems. We might be looking at $10 to $100 PulseChain by that time. And then everyone that was still holding is obviously going to be very, very happy to have that problem in the future. But all I'm saying is there's unknown unknowns that will eventually come into play to abstract all of the complicated user experience. I mean, even the fact that we have to pay gas for a transaction, that's actually a terrible user experience. Like right now, certain applications. I'm looking at different anonymity software like Railgun. Railgun offers gasless transactions. Actually, Staker app offers gasless transactions. So this is stuff that we can implement today. It's just that for whatever reason, very few developers bother to implement gasless transactions into their code, even though we have it. Not a lot of people are using it. Maybe there's complications that I don't know about, but Staker app has it, and one day hopefully every app will have it. We shouldn't have to be paying in another token to send a completely separate token where we might not even care about token A. We just want to send token B from person 1 to person 2. But now we got to buy token A for some reason just to pay for that. Like, why can't I just pay some of the fees in HEX rather than buying a brand new coin like Ethereum?
And Staker was one of the first to really use that flash bot in order to end a stake. So what happens is you can pay your fees in your HEX that you don't have yet, because at the end of the transaction, it's going to take part of your balance. So instead of having to put Ethereum in your wallet so that you can end your stake, it can take that from the balance that you're getting back. So that was something innovative that Steph and Firebun worked towards, because that makes sense, right? Because if you've got 0 Ethereum in your wallet and your MetaMask and you need to end a stake, you have to go to Coinbase and buy it so you can get your HEX out of jail. And that flashbot mechanism was really cool. And yeah, some of the DEXs are using those gasless transaction fees, but what they're doing is they're doing the flashbot thing too, where they take that out of the
they're selling one thing for another thing on the back end and abstracting it away from the user. I would think, Richard, if you're listening, sounds like you're probably already on top of this, but sounds like a pretty good feature idea for the Richard Hart wallet, or maybe we're going to call it the Richard Hart keychain. That might even be a better name for it. I love that. I love the changing of the paradigm. Let's call it a keychain. Keyring, yeah, whatever. But I mean, seeing gasless transactions on that, I mean, guys, if you're in the ecosystem now, you're looking at the latest and greatest innovations in crypto. That's what Richard's all about. I mean, he understands what's available and when the right timing is to use it as well. Feline, thank you for the sticker, by the way. Thank you very much. He says HEX will be over $100 by 2028. Stake and chill. I hope so. I hope you're right, sir.
That's our unit bias talking, Matt. That's our unit bias talking. We can't see $100 HEX, because that would mean like $1 million a day or some shit. It's like that doesn't make sense. That has no fathomable concept in our reality. But what happens is, as the price moves up, we see people exit their position, because as the price goes up, they start justifying what they can let go, right? If you've got $10 million, you can justify letting go $1 million, right? Because you got 10. You can if you got $100 million, you can probably justify letting $10 million go. You start to justify this in your head to eventually you give up most of your position. That's the reprogramming that's really difficult, especially from crypto space, where the idea is most people are all in, all out, into the next thing, all in, all out. And the position in HEX is never out. Never, never, never. You never want to be with an empty bag at the end of the price chart.
You don't want to kill your golden goose that's laying you those golden eggs, Dip Catcher, going back to your comments, I'm very curious to learn more, because this guy's super smart developer bro. He says that I think we're going back to the gasless transaction things. It's because the developer covers the cost. Are you talking about in Staker app? Because there's a different use case I was thinking of in Railgun that I think might work a little bit differently. But is it always just that the developer has to put up his own money to get paid, to pay the ETH, and then we'll accept the fee in terms of a different coin? He says Open Zeppela has a meta transaction relayer. Yeah, but I'm talking about now. There's a ZK rollup version on this Railgun wallet. Staker and Railgun might be using different things. I don't know. I'm very curious to learn more about this kind of a thing. So let me know.
Something cool about the NFTs, though, that HEX community has found a way to put value in NFTs with the HSIs, with the Watsas.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's another innovation. Yeah. I mean, financial NFTs, just like liquidity positions. HEX now has tradable stakes. You can trade them if you want to. I'm not so interested in that right now, but people have put them up for auction on OpenSea and hexmarket.com. And I believe there's been NFTs sold that haven't actually reached maturity yet. So
Yeah.
This is also the next evolution. This is basically a secondary bond market for Hex, and
A
you can use
use
them or
case,
not.
an actual use case for NFTs. You know, they're talking about gaining use case, gaining adoption, gaining ideas for what to do with their pictures, right? And Hex has actually exhibited one of the primary uses for the NFTs. Whether or not you want to participate in that or that's what you want, it's just the fact that the I prefer the native stakes myself over
Mhm.
the NFTs. I'm not a real big NFT guy, but if you're speaking to the NFT community when they're talking about use cases, Hex was one of the first ones to actually utilize it and create a sort of financial product as an NFT
Mhm.
that has value, that represents a position that you hold, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely awesome. I just made a video on that. If anybody's brand new to Hex and doesn't understand what we're talking about, if you want to learn how to wrap your stakes, go watch my previous video and maybe like and subscribe as well. Dipcatcher said, I was looking into it to cover the stake pools for a pool party. Um, so Dipcatcher is the guy that made the trustless staking pools. For those that don't know, I got to back up because sometimes I'm like way over my head with when I'm talking about crypto. But you can now do these trustless stake pools, and it looks like he decided as a developer, he made the decision not to have gasless transactions because they require a relayer to have funds on hand when the stakes end. Okay, so you don't want to have to rely on a relayer, and I do think that Railgun also uses a relayer. I'm on the wall right now, and it says connected to relayers, so I would assume that they
That
are
means
connected.
relayers.
Yep, they're connected. So I don't know which relays they are. They have some kind of like ZK relayers or whatever. But when you send from the private wallet to the public wallet, it just appears that the funds came from the relayer, not that they came from any centralized wallet. So I thought that's a pretty cool innovation. I'm sure we'll see more of that as time goes on, as that gets common. But thank you for that, Dipcatcher.
Yeah, and it's interesting though. We got Brian there, dip catcher. He's created multiple derivatives on Hex. How many tokens have five derivatives built on them? You know, there's a whole freaking ecosystem here that people are completely unaware of whatsoever. They don't know what we've built here. They're not aware. It's very esoteric because like Hexagons understands so much that everybody else is like 3 years behind in
Yeah.
catching up to what we've been
And
talking
we've been
about
doing
the
this
whole
stuff
time.
since day one. I don't know if you guys remember. Well, not day one, but during the first couple of months of Hex, we had all these guys. We had some developers, Kodiak, Swift Salamander. They were building these prototype apps for, Hex OTC.win, Hex Ref.win. They were looking to introduce the referral system back into Hex. They were looking to create a market for over the counter Hex trading,
Hmm.
similar to what Dipcatcher is almost doing today, kind of. They also had Hexpool.win. Hexpool.win was the prototype for what Dipcatcher went ahead and expanded on and created the perpetual staking contracts. So,
And Hex
um,
Pay was the first initial encapsulated stake thing before
oh
Hedron.
yeah, there was some kind of a stake trading market as well. And so these wrap stakes ideas have been in the works for a while. Brian or Dipcatcher is basically the guy that kind of perfected it and so far has the most successful perpetual pools and is about
Pools.
to kind of basically open source it almost. He's going to open it up for anybody that wants to make a staking pool because if we all pool together money in a stake, we can get a lot more out of that bigger pays better bonus. So some people, who knows, some people might decide to only do wrapped pooled stakes from now on if they understand the rewards involved in it. I don't know. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see other people get a chance to found their own staking pools. We've got Hedron, which is a different, totally other thing. I think you know when you
Payments.
have a premier financial asset when it itself is the primitive for a lot of applications, like being built on top of it, like a Cosa, Hedron, Perpetuals, and these are just the beginning, right? We're only 3 years old.
And we've got Communis that's built on top also, which I mean, not that they have much value, but it's another additional coin that you get for free as a Hex holder. And then on top of that, we've already profited greatly from having T shares because having T shares has been kind of sort of the requirement of receiving additional airdrops. And some of them are perpetual airdrops, like the Communists and like the Hedron. Because you have T shares, you're getting coins for life from those on top of your hex. Plus, when we get the Pulse fork, we're going to have it on 2 chains. How much freaking better it doesn't need to be for people to finally catch on? I don't see that. I don't even think they're wrapping their head around hex yet to even know all the additional benefits from the fact that we were the first to really utilize Uniswap to its fullest capacity and 1-inch, which allowed us to get the free uni and the free 1-inch. I don't want to mention the mixer, because that became controversial later, but
People
that
still use it.
provided tokens too.
People still use that mixer, even though
Yeah.
the developer got arrested, but nobody seems to care. And I'm also very interested in privacy solutions, moving beyond Tornado Cash, right? Like, I know Hurry Cash is coming to PulseChain, but even just ZK layer 2 stuff, it's all very,
There's all
very
these
cool to
free
me.
airdrops that we got just for participating in hex. It was just absorbent, man.
Yeah, I probably made about between 10 and 20K of just free money falling
Just
into my lap.
airdrops.
Yep.
Even if you only had put $100 in hex, you could have gotten $20,000 worth of airdrops just for being a hexagon. I mean, that's how crazy it is. And people want to point and say, "Oh, these guys are the bad guys, and don't listen to them." Well, you listened to the wrong people, and you missed out on a lot of fun stuff. And if you keep listening to those people, you're going to miss out on a lot more fun stuff to come.
We're the bad guy. You heard it here, guys. Look at these faces. These are the faces of evil. Clearly, we're criminal masterminds. We're manipulating everybody now. Not at all, guys. We're some of the only people doing crypto the right way, and I think it triggers a lot of people when it's so out of left field, because it's so back to the roots of what the cypherpunk movement was all about.
Self-sovereignty, man. Your keys, your crypto, your power, your control. You're participating in the ecosystem. You're not just a consumer. They want you to be a consumer. They want to keep selling to you. They want you to buy their bags. They don't want you to be part of the ecosystem and make your own coins.
Yeah.
They don't want you to know that freedom's possible. That's not what they want you to. They are dependent on you buying their services and utilizing their platforms and giving them your money instead of you working by yourself, producing assets on your own, and interacting with the open market freely yourself.
Yeah, guys. I mean, beware of who is talking ill about cryptocurrency. And try to ask yourself, does their business model rely on you not understanding how to self-custody? Because the answer is yes.
Yes.
And then just follow the money, basically, and just realize where you're supposed to be. We're at an hour, dude. Should we wrap this up?
That's good, man. I think this is a great point.
Okay. Cool, man. Hey, thanks for coming on, Johnny. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hope you guys learned something. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. Not for Johnny, but for me. Johnny's the anti-influencer. He doesn't want your attention.
Yeah. So if you guys like me, follow him, okay? Because we do share a lot of the stuff. We have a different way of presenting it sometimes, but I mean, me and Coffee have been pretty much on the same page since day one.
Yeah.
And just trying to come out here and stomp out the lies and give you guys some perspective to help you make your own best decision. Not to tell you what to do, but to give you the tools to let you make your best decision.
Well said, dude. Well said. Adios, bros.